Hello everybody. In Unit 6, Lessons 7, 8, and 9, we focused on two big learning targets, and one was being able to use the distributive property to create an equivalent expression, and the other one was the ability to use a lot of our background knowledge in basic multiplication and division to factor an algebraic expression. So I'm going to go ahead and do 4 problems, pause, complete the problem, rewind it, and practice it, compare your answers with what I have here, and then come into class prepared with any questions that you have. So away we go with the first problem. The first expression that I have here is 3 times 2a minus 4b. So in this case, I'm going to use the distributive property to create an equivalent expression. So there's a couple of ways to look at this, and one is that you're really multiplying the 3, okay, by both terms inside the parentheses, right? And we've done that many times. So there's a couple of ways you can tackle this problem. So one, I can take this 3 and multiply it by 2a. So I could really go 3 times 2a, and I can subtract that from multiplying the 3 times the 4b, okay? That's how we kind of expand it. But I can also think of it in the way of, I have the 3 here, and I can multiply it by the 2a. And if I multiply that by the 2a, I could have 3 times 2a would be 6a, right? And I'm going to subtract that from the product that I get when I go 3 times 4b. So 3 times 4b would be 12b. So this right here is my expanded expression here by using the distributive property. So my final answer here would be 6a minus 12b. The next problem that I have is a times 2b plus 2c. So using the same strategy I used in the first problem, I have a times 2b, and I know that this would give me 2ab. And the reason why you smush that a and the b, those two variables together, is you don't know what their value is. So if you don't know what the value is, this is really another way of writing 2 times a times b. I'll then go ahead and I will multiply the a times the 2c. So I will go ahead and say 2ac. So again, this is my expanded expression using the distributive property. For the last two problems, this is where you are going to factor the expression. It's really undoing what we did in the first two problems, right? This is now working backwards, essentially. So we're going to factor. And by doing that, this is what we really need to activate that background knowledge in our basic multiplication and basic division facts. And I have this expression shows me 4b minus 2. So if I was to tackle this problem, I would look and say, all right, well, what is a factor that both 4 and 2 have in common? In this case, that one's pretty simple, and I know it's 2. So I'm almost going to pull a 2 out of there. And I'm going to open up my parentheses, and I'm going to think, if 2 divided by 2 is 1, and 4b divided by 2 leaves me with 2b. I'll subtract that from what 2 minus 2 is, and that's 1. One way to think if you're correct or not is to use the distributive property to check your work. So I could think and say, all right, well, I have 2 times 2b, that gives me 4b, and 2 times 1 gives me 2. So I know I have factored that expression correctly. The last expression that I'm going to, again, factor is 6 plus 12y. So I'm going to think, well, what are factors that you can divide 6 and 12 by evenly? Remember, no remainders allowed here. I could think 2. 2 could work. But I can go higher. I can find that greatest common factor. 3 could work, but I know I can go higher, and I know sometimes that factor is actually in your expression. In this case, it is. I could say, all right, well, I know that 6 works, so I will pull a 6 out of this problem, and I will now see if I can divide both terms by 6. I definitely can. So I know that 6 divided by 6 is 1, and 12y divided by 6 gives me 2y. So now I've successfully factored that, but just want to check my work to make sure, and I know I can check it using the distributive property. So I can say 6 times 1 is 6, so I have that correct, and 6 times 2y is 12y. I know that that's correct. So just to wrap all this up, we just quickly reviewed 2 ways of creating equivalent expressions. We can create an equivalent expression using the distributive property. Essentially, when you use the distributive property, you're getting rid of the parentheses. And we also figured out we can create an equivalent expression by factoring, and that's usually when we create the parentheses. So they're opposite techniques for creating equivalent expressions. So complete the problems. Good luck. Come with any questions to class. Thank you.